So what about the future? Where's sales going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road and all? So, and I think a good way to think about this is sort of two-pronged. The first is that, for the foreseeable future, business and commerce is going to continue to be around. It's going to be a very, very important part of our society, and sales is part of that. And so we continue to see the importance of sales as being something that will be a focus of business for many, many years to come. Now, that said, how sales is done and what exactly salespeople do is going to change. And in particular, we've talked about the role of technology, and it's going to alter the way sales goes about what it does and all. And so one of the things that I think sales managers need to do is, in one part, kind of keep their eye out on the environment outside of just what they do. And in particular, be mindful of the fact of changes that you see that are occurring in society and how that might impact what you're doing. We expect that the sales operations manager, that job is going to continue to evolve. And this specialization is going to help you in a couple of different ways. Number one, we are going to give you the tools that you need in order to perform this particular job, right? And teach you not only just what these tools are, but how to use those tools. And so one will give you the things that you need to be able to succeed. But we're also trying to kind of embrace what's going on in the broader world around us, and in particular, helping you to kind of have the right attitude or the right footing that you need in order to succeed. Recognize that what happens today is no guarantee that it will happen exactly the same way tomorrow. And we all have to be really light on our feet. We have to be able to evolve and change. In particular, I would say that you need to keep a focus on customers. The more you understand customers and what their needs are, everything else naturally kind of falls into place. I think the sales operations manager is going to face a number of interesting challenges in regards to recruitment. In particular, perhaps one of the biggest challenges that is going to occur is that as time goes on, you're going to be recruiting people from later generations. We talk about now millennials are about to become the driving force in the business world, sort of as baby boomers begin to retire. Each of these generational cohorts have different values, different ways that they like to work and what they expect out of their job. And this really requires then, a different orientation by that sales operation manager. So I think that understanding the needs of the future worker is going to be a real critical success factor. I think the other thing that is important is that we are increasingly morphing towards more of a networked kind of society. You see, it used to be like, I think the fundamental building block in business was the firm, and either you worked for the firm or you didn't, right? And the world was comprised of a bunch of different firms. Today, we're seeing more and more people that are kind of being out on their own, and they, sort of through freelance and like the Uber type model, are in a sense working for different organizations, but that working relationship is very different than their traditional employer-employee type of contract that used to exist in the past. I think that's going to make the job of managing these people a little bit more difficult, because the manager doesn't have as much control over those people as they once did back in the good old days. So how will this specialization help you to build your sales management skills? I think in twofold. First and foremost, we have to provide you with a foundation. We're going to give you and talk about the tools that are used in the business of sales management. One has to simply be familiar with what these are before you can actually practice them. But then we also are going to give you the opportunity to sort of either see how these skills are used in the real world or ways in which you can actually apply them in sort of assignments and discussions and that type of thing. So that there's a certain practice component to that. Those two things together, building of knowledge and practicing those skills, is what ultimately is going to help you to build your own skill set. So much of what I did in my 25-year career in the private sector was very sales-oriented and all. And I'm often asked, what were some of my greatest successes that I achieved in the private sector? Now, it's very easy for me to point at certain clients that I was involved with in helping to convince them to use the firm that I worked for and all. And I can also kind of point to the different types of communication programs that we did for some of these clients and the impact that these people had. But what I think of my greatest successes was actually more about developing the people that have worked for me over the years. And at this point, I take a tremendous sense of pride that many of these people have gone on to have incredible careers in the marketing and in the sales area, and have gone on to enjoy great successes and recognition for them and all. And I'd like to think I kind of played a small role in that. And to me, looking at that next generation of business leaders brings me the greatest satisfaction. So much of what I did in my 25-year career in the private sector was very sales-oriented and all. And I'm often asked, what were some of my greatest successes that I achieved in the private sector? Now, it's very easy for me to point at certain clients that I was involved with in helping to convince them to use the firm that I worked for and all. And I can also kind of point to the different types of communication programs that we did for some of these clients and the impact that these people had. But what I think of my greatest successes was actually more about developing the people that have worked for me over the years. And at this point, I take a tremendous sense of pride that many of these people have gone on to have incredible careers in the marketing and in the sales area, and have gone on to enjoy great successes and recognition for them and all. And I'd like to think I kind of played a small role in that. And to me, looking at that next generation of business leaders brings me the greatest satisfaction. So one of the things that I was involved with over the years was helping clients to develop international marketing communication strategies. So what this typically involves are companies that are international to begin with, and they're looking to complement their international operations with marketing communications and all. So there are two very fundamental ways that companies tend to approach this task. The first is where one has sort of like one message, one particular strategy, and attempts to run that strategy around the world, right? And kind of a one-size-fits-all particular approach. The other strategy is where one tries to tailor its message to particular markets or particular regions of the world, and what they want to do. Now, much of the decision that goes into how you approach that particular strategy is a function of your marketplace itself. So if you have a fairly uniform market around the world, then probably a one-size-fits-all strategy can kind of work. In some cases, you might find that there are certain countries that, or certain regions of the world that are perhaps more developed, and that for that reason have very different types of communication needs that need to occur in those particular regions than in others and all. So perhaps the most important factor in international expansion and international market communication strategies and all has to do with where you want to put that particular focus and all. So I'm reminded, I have a close friend that is involved in the industrial ceramics business and all, and they were a US-based manufacturer and all. Now, over the years they had been very successful, but then particularly as manufacturing moved away from the United States and into other countries, their business began to kind of shrink a bit and all. And so they were, to some degree, almost forced into expanding internationally and all. So they decided they needed to grow internationally, and they started to do some research and looked at different markets and trying to figure out where they wanted to go. They spoke to experts in the industry and all, and sort of through all that research and discussion, decided that their initial place of market entry would be the United Kingdom, right? And so they began to pursue, customers in the United Kingdom. That involved, traveling to the United Kingdom regularly and, paying sales calls on customers and that type of thing. And what they found was that it was a really hard road, right? Really hard to break into that marketplace. And in particular, what they discovered was that, a lot of the customers in the United Kingdom were concerned about the length of the supply chain, right? Because their manufacturing operations were in the United States and so forth, right? So they kept struggling and moving along and so forth. Time went on, and they, somewhat serendipitously had the opportunity to make a couple of sales calls in the country of Germany, right? And so my friend was in a particular customer's office and was kind of going through his sort of standard sales presentation and all. And interestingly, one of the things like in industrial ceramics, so ceramics are these things that are made that then you use to pour molten metal into, and they, to make particular objects and all. One of they talk about precision castings and all. So one of those things would be, let's say, turbine blades for generators and jet engines and that type of thing. So what's really, really important in the manufacturing of those is that these industrial ceramics have to be incredibly pure. They can't have like minerals and other kinds of elements in there. That would be like a really bad thing when the molten metal is poured into it and so forth. So one of the things that you have to provide to a customer is a thing called a trace mineral analysis. So they take that industrial ceramics and they put it into like a laboratory, and they examine to find, traces of minerals and elements that really shouldn't be in there. One of those elements is the element bismuth, B-I-S-M-U-T-H. It's B-I on the periodic table. And this German customer took a look at my friend's, lab results and all, and pointed at the bismuth number and said, there must be some mistake. That number is way, way too low. And my friend didn't think that was the case, but as far as said, well, let me go back and check with our lab and make sure that things are right. So he goes back to the United States, goes to the lab and talks with them and finds out that the that analysis was exactly correct, that the information was exactly as reported and all. So he calls back to the customer and sort of says, well, I just wanted you to know that the trace mineral analysis came back, and it is what it is. And he said to my friend, do you realize that your industrial ceramics are by a magnitude better in quality than what's available by our domestic market? In other words, I guess the people in Germany had really high bismuth content and so forth. And what that story sort of talks about really was that in Germany, my friend had an incredible competitive advantage and all, and suddenly started getting tons and tons of sales out of Germany. Doesn't it sometimes make you wonder, though, why the devil did they start in the United Kingdom? They really belonged in Germany in the first place. Selection of where you're going to focus your international efforts is super, super important. So why did I get into sales, and why am I still doing it and teaching it and all? I think that for me, the part that I really have enjoyed about sales is really the idea that you're helping customers, you're solving problems, right? To the extent that I can show a customer, how they can make their operations better or more efficient or whatever it is that they're trying to do, and actually be able to deliver on that is incredibly satisfying and rewarding and all. However, back about 15 years ago or so, I sort of had the fortune of accidentally discovering teaching. And I was asked to teach a course, and I was still working in the corporate world, but I kind of thought that would be sort of a neat thing. And what I discovered was I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so I made the decision to kind of shift completely into the academic world and all. And I guess what I'm hoping to do is influence the next generation of leaders in the world. So what motivates me to sell? I think it primarily is about trying to help people, right? Trying to solve problems, trying to show people how they can do things better, faster, cheaper, whatever the thing is. To me, it's really that's what really gets my motors kind of humming and all. I really view that ability of helping people to be something incredibly rewarding. So what made me want to keep moving up the ladder to become the person that I am today? I think it's a combination of things. Certainly, as you move up the ladder, one gets greater, salaries and economic rewards and that type of thing. And I don't think I'm any different than many other people. I do like money, and that's always been a nice thing to have and all. But I think it's also really, as I moved up the ladder, I was able to have greater influence, and my span of control moved to a bigger group of people. And I think that ability to be able to have more and greater impact has been a very powerful motivator for me. So what is the best thing about being a sales operation manager? I think personally it allows you to kind of have a sense of ownership over the entire enterprise, right? And that while one has to depend upon salespeople to actually do the selling and all, ultimately you are the leader. To some degree, I think a sales operation manager is like a person conducting a symphony. That conductor doesn't play a single musical instrument, but actually coordinates and brings all of those disparate musical instruments together to make beautiful music.